uncovering the many secrets and mysteries of Verruckt? Let's go. Coca-Cola debut. As we all know, perks were first introduced with Verruckt, and in the official trailer they're described like this: double tap root beer, fire faster and send more, YouTube demonetization word, back to hell. Speed Cola, reload at lightning speed and keep your guns blazing. Revive Soda, quickly save your buddies from the brink of death. Now again, this was the first time perks were ever introduced into zombies, so people really didn't know what was going on. Well, they kind of had like a little idea, but they were very confused with how all of this was going to work. I found an old GameSpot article talking about Verruckt before the map actually came out, and they described perks like this. Like the Nuka-Cola machines that are scattered throughout Fallout 3, these machines are a sort of beacon of reassuring pop culture amid a war zone. And likewise, they provide benefits that extend beyond their warm, reassuring glow. Indeed, you can use the money that you've earned to buy soda from them. The delicious nectar contained within each of these machines comes with a specific perk. For example, the root beer machine will give you double tap ability, whereas the other three will give you Juggernaut, Sleight of Hand, and Fast Revive. These will all last until you're knocked down by zombies. And just hearing perks described like that is so weird to hear. And looking through a bunch of old forums to see what people thought of these perks when they first got them, I was noticing a pretty common occurrence that Jug and Quick Revive were the OGs, even though people were still a little confused on how Quick Revive really worked. But a lot of people really loved those two perks. And another little just funny tidbit is, looking throughout all of these old forums, no one ever called it Speed Cola. People either called it Quick Reload, Sleight of Hand, or Speed Reload. The term Speed Cola apparently just did not exist for Verruckt at all. And I'm kind of curious to know when the actual term Speed Cola took place and people just stopped calling it Sleight of Hand. Electroshock Defense debut. This is talking about the electric trap that was also first introduced with Verruckt, and this was a game changer. No longer do you have to rely on just using the flamethrower or camping in a corner to get to high rounds. Now you can camp behind a trap and use that to get to higher rounds. And again, going through a bunch of old forums, everyone seemed to love this right off the bat. But a lot of people didn't seem to understand just how good these would actually be. Looking through a lot of old strategies from back in the day, people would just camp near the trap and activate it and kill zombies while the trap is activated. And I saw plenty of people bragging about getting to the high teens to mid 20s. Even someone getting to the mid 30s was considered amazing. But there was also a bunch of people wary of the traps, considering the fact that you didn't get points and they did not give you drops, so no max ammos for you. So when Verruckt first came out, traps were essential to get to high rounds, but people didn't really understand them yet and didn't see them as necessary as we all know they are today. 2 spawn points. This is one of the coolest things ever introduced into zombies, and I'm so just pissed off that we really never saw too much more of this. In Verruckt, if you spawn in with 4 people, you're going to be split up right at the start. 2 people on the quote-unquote American side and 2 people on the German side. And you would not be able to link up until you got power on, which is an awesome concept, especially for the second map ever made. But sadly, they just were like, yeah, we don't really feel like playing or exploring too much with that ever again. Power Switch debut. Verruckt just introduced so many staples into the modern zombies that we know. One of them was probably one of the most important, the power switch. Having a central goal to actually get to before you can get anything else done in the map was a unique take on what they did previously. Now players finally had an objective to get to. And believe it or not, there were people asking for power switch tutorials back in the day. Asylum multiplayer map. Like a lot of other zombie maps, and like Nocturne Toten if you saw my previous video, Verruckt is based off a multiplayer map called Asylum, and it's almost a one-to-one recreation. They are very, very similar. Now of course there's going to be doors that shouldn't be there or added areas, but majority of the layout is the same. And for me, who has at this point played way more zombies than multiplayer, playing the multiplayer map Asylum just feels wrong. At any point I'm expecting a zombie to run up on me, and being around the middle of the map just feels like I'm in an area that I shouldn't be in. Mystery Box Teddy. Another staple that Verruckt introduced was the fact that the mystery box can now move, and the infamous teddy bear. Bye bye. And looking through a bunch of old forum posts, at first, everyone hated the teddy bear. People assumed that if you got the teddy bear, that the box was just gone. They saw it disappear and didn't know that it would just respawn somewhere else. The whole mechanics of the mystery box moving just blew a lot of people's minds. Now again, remember, this is coming off of Nocturne and Toten, where the box didn't move at all. And it even got to the point where people were asking, how do I figure out where it's moved to, and can someone give me a guide on all the spawn locations? But eventually, people would get used to it, and actually even start devising strategies to basically play all around the mystery box moving. New weapons introduced. Verruckt introduced a lot of new weapons both in the mystery box and on the wall that were not in Nocturne and Toten. Some of the wall weapons were the Spring Peel, the Gewehr, the M1 Grand, the STG, the MP40, and the BAR, but with a bipod. And for the mystery box, of course, we got introduced to one of the greatest weapons of all time, the PPSH-41. Dentist Chair. This is talking about the infamous dentist chair in one of these spawn rooms, where if you go up to it, you can hear this. And this is still probably one of the creepiest Easter eggs that Zombies has ever put in the game. But of course, going back to 2009, everyone loved it and thought it was creepy as all hell. And a lot of people even commented on it that they were going to try to scare their friends with it. And even back in 2009, there were actually arguments as to whether it was indeed a dentist chair because of the drill, or if it was actually a lobotomy chair. Power will reunite you. Now, like when you go back and look at this with today's brain, you're like, herder, of course you just have to turn on power. But again, put yourself back in 2009, just coming off of Nocturne and Toten. You've heard about this mysterious power switch and perks and electric traps, but you have no idea what they are. So your first time spawning in, you see all your other teammates on the other side of a wall that you can't purchase. The wall riding power will reunite you is just trying to give you a hint that, hey, once you make your way to power, you can turn it on and then finally reunite with your friends. Perk posters. Another cool thing that Verruckt did that we somewhat saw throughout the years in Zombies was the perk posters. I mean, hell, you got new perks on the map, you gotta advertise them. And probably one of the more famous ones is the Quick Revive one. We'll talk about one of the reasons why farther down in this iceberg, but the other reason is for this dude's face just peeking out behind the bottle. This was actually a developer that they would later go on to take off of the poster when they redid it years later. Mystery box now moves to different spawn points. I think this is also just talking about how the mystery box will eventually move, kind of similar to what we talked about with the teddy bear. So we'll just go on to layer 2. There's no reason to rehash all that. Tank Dempsey. Tank Dempsey is one of the main characters in Zombies. We all know and love him, but he was first introduced in Shin Onuma. He was never originally in Verruckt, but later on in the story, Treyarch would go back and add him to Verruckt as one of the 4 Marines. As you're probably going to hear me say a lot in this video, the storyline hadn't really been made yet. There was a foundation being created, but the overall story, as of Verruckt, wasn't fully fledged out yet. So once Dempsey was actually introduced and theories about him being one of the Marines in Verruckt started to arise, Treyarch decided to go back and add him in. And it's canon. Dempsey is one of the Marines in Verruckt. Wish too often and your wishing well will run. This is some more writing that you can find on the walls in Verruckt. That's just a subtle way to say if you hit the box too many times, eventually you're going to get a teddy bear and it's going to run away. AKA, move to a new spot. Verruckt loading screen. Verruckt has a rather interesting loading screen because literally everything on the map is in this loading screen. You want to know where the perks are, where the buyables are, traps, where you spawn? Literally everything is laid out on this loading screen. Lightning banishes darkness. This is some more wall writing that you can find on Verruckt, and it could either mean one of two things. One, lightning or electricity banishes darkness or kills zombies. Or two, you could kind of take it more literal and like lightning banishes darkness, where like turning on the power brightens up the map. I think it's the first one, but you can take it either way. John Banana. This is another name of one of the 4 Marines that were sent to Verruckt. And in the Black Ops terminals, you can learn a little bit more about this Marine. And one thing that he liked to do is talk in rhymes. One of them is, "My name is John, they call me Banana. I once worked at a Tex-Mex cabana, but now I am here, as Walking Dead near, with nothing on me but a banana." I'm not really good at reading rhymes, so this is all probably going to be sounding a little off. Another one that you can find in the terminal is, "I once knew a soldier named Smokey. He slapped me on the head and awoke me. Turns out he was dead, I cut off his head, yet, but headless, he still tried to choke me. Despite the scary, anxious feeling, killing Walking Dead is appealing. My first kill felt great, felt like my first date, kicking their brains right up to the ceiling. Smokey and I were trapped in a room. We accepted our impending doom. Till we noticed a monkey, which felt kinda funky, until we threw it and it went boom." So as you can see, this whole zombies experience definitely did a number on this man's mental state. Winter's Howl and Wonderwaffe DG2 availability. On the World War version of Verruckt, the only real wonder weapon you have is the ray gun. Originally, I think they were wanting to put the Wonderwaffe on the map, but due to time constraints, they had to push it off to Shinonuma. In the Black Ops 1 version, you get the Winter's Howl. I know, calm down. Such a great wonder weapon, right? And in the Black Ops 3 version, you eventually finally got the Wonderwaffe DG2. Paxton Gunner Ridge. This was the name of yet another one of the Marines that was sent to Verruckt, and one of the only ones to actually make it out alive. We'll learn more about him farther down. Ring of Steel campaign level. This is talking about the campaign level that was the inspiration for the multiplayer map Asylum and then eventually the zombie map of Verruckt. In this mission, you're playing as the Soviets and killing a bunch of Nazis. And there is still a lot of Verruckt in this mission. Like, you can definitely point out certain locations, but Verruckt is more close to its multiplayer counterpart than it is to the campaign counterpart. Lullaby for a Dead Man. This is the actual first music Easter egg. I know Nocturne Toten had the little radio, but that wasn't like a dedicated song. That was just music already in the game. Lullaby for a Dead Man was specifically made for this. Or kind of. I'll get to that here in a second. But to activate the song, you just have to flush the toilet a couple times, and then the music will start playing. Now, I could sit here and explain to you how this song came to be, or I could let the creator, Kevin Sherwood, do it himself.
Well, the soundtrack was actually originally just a guitar riff from Nocturne Toten, where we wanted to put something cool sounding when you die, and when it shipped, it was actually Brian who suggested that we turn it into a whole song. And
my best impression.
I told him I didn't think it was possible, but then he said I had to do it, so... That's
the worst thing you could say.
Yeah, exactly.
Challenge accepted.
Right. Yeah, done.
We just wanted to see if we could actually produce something out of it. You know, we had a little bit of time,
So,
and you know, there was no reason to do it other than, hey, let's see if this. If we
why
can,
not?
You know,
Right?
this
Yeah.
sounds cool, right?
So I went and expensed the beer and whiskey budget, and then went home, wrote something, and then threw it in,
And zombie it up.
and that's how I think that's how it happened. Yeah.
Super Sprinters. One, depending on who you ask, cool thing that Verruckt introduced was the Super Sprinters, where eventually the zombies will literally be sprinting at you full speed. They'll be faster than your normal walking speed. So in order to actually outrun them, you have to run as well, compared to all the other zombies where you can just kind of outwalk them. And those Super Sprinters made this already tiny map much, much more difficult. Smokey. Smokey is the last and final of the 4 Marines that was sent into Verruckt, and we really don't know too much about him besides his ultimate fate, which we'll get into farther down on this list. But so far, we got Dempsey, Paxton Gunner Ridge, John Banana, and Smokey. Bar with bipod. One of the most overpriced guns in all of Call of Duty Zombies history is on Verruckt. You have to open a very specific door just to actually get to it, and the only thing in this room is the BAR with a bipod. That's going to cost you 2,500 points. Yeah, this whole thing is in the trailer and it looks pretty cool, but you can't actually use the bipod, thus making this just a regular BAR worth 2,500 points. The reason that they kind of ended up scrapping the whole bipod thing was because it could be exploited a lot and it ended up crashing things, and it was just a bigger hassle than it was worth. But there are still a couple glitches that you can do where you can deploy it. Now, they're not useful whatsoever, but if you ever wanted to see what it was like, you still can. German weapons on left side. So remember how we talked about having 2 different spawn points? Well, one of the spawn points is just going to be the German side, and that's the left one. You will spawn in with the Kar 98 and the Gewehr, but it doesn't just stop there. The entire left side of the map is going to be nothing but German weapons. The next wall weapons you're going to encounter are the MP40 and the STG-44. So the entire left side of the map is going to be nothing but German weapons. Except for the trench gun. But, you know, the Germans have a history with shotguns. Tank Dempsey captured. Verruckt is the map where Dempsey first gets introduced into the story. Well, kind of, like he first made his appearance on Shinonuma, but storyline-wise, his involvement was in Verruckt. On September 6th, 1945, that is when the 4 Marines, including Dempsey, would arrive at the asylum facility and find it overrun by zombies. They were there to find a man named Peter McCain, an undercover American spy that was sent in to infiltrate Group 935, and the Marines were sent in there to get him the hell out of there. But the place would be overrun by zombies, and Dempsey would later get captured by Group 935, becoming a part of Richtofen's experiments. Verruckt and Blackout. Blackout was so freaking cool, man. I absolutely loved it. One section of Blackout was called Asylum, and it was the entire Verruckt facility. You could go into almost every single area and explore new ones that you never could in Zombies. And when you got here in Blackout, zombies would actually spawn in and try to attack you. And you could even find the ray gun here. And that's not all. You could also activate the music Easter egg by flushing the toilets. We were definitely truly spoiled with Blackout. It was way too cool for them to just abandon it. American weapons on right side. So the Germans got the left side and the Americans got the right. You spawn in with the Springfield and the M1 Grand, make your way to the Thompson and the BAR. I really wish they would have experimented more with the splitting up spawns and one side having one set of weapons and another having another set of weapons entirely. They should have definitely experimented more. This is such a cool concept for them to really never play with ever again. Zombies more aggressive. The zombies definitely took it up a notch when it came to Verruckt compared to Nocturne and Toten. On Verruckt, not only do you have the super sprinters, which after round like 6, they will spawn in and good luck, but the zombies will also start hitting you through barriers, which was not something that they could do in Nocturne and Toten. In Noct, they actually had to destroy the entire window before they could actually hit you. In Verruckt, no fucks are given and they're gonna attack you. And their chances of windmilling you or double swiping you have gone up significantly, so the zombies definitely upped their game when it came to Verruckt compared to Noct. Unusable machine guns. Outside of the map on Verruckt, mainly underneath the map, you can find a plethora of machine guns that are mountable and fireable, but normally in an average game you're not going to be able to ever see these or use them. Underneath the fountain, you have a mounted MG42. And outside of the map, you have even more guns, such as the FG42 and the BAR, all which can be mounted and fired. Now, I've seen a lot of explanations for these, but the most common one is that they were just used to experiment with and try to get the whole deployable weapons thing down, and they were just leftover assets. Springfield wall buy removed. I have no idea why they did this, but in the Black Ops 1 remake, they removed the Springfield and replaced it with the Car 98, effectively ruining the left and right side, the German and American sides. But getting rid of the Springfield just feels like a slap in the face to everybody that loved the World at War version. Yeah, the Springfield is atrociously bad and the sights suck just complete ass, but it still was really fun to use, and getting rid of it was just not the correct decision. Lycan Show House. So this one is a little confusing. I'm not sure if it meant to misspell this word or not. It's not supposed to be spelled L-I-E, it's supposed to be spelled L-E-I. So I'm not sure if that was supposed to be a thing or not, because I could not find anything about like a misspelling. Maybe I'm just dumb and maybe I don't know how to research things. But this word translates from German to English and it basically means morgue. So if this is just talking about the creepy ass morgue on the American side, I don't know why it would be this low, but we'll do what we can with it. Verruckt does have a morgue. What else are you supposed to do with all those dead bodies of those patients you're brutally torturing? And the creepiest part about the morgue, if you stand inside of it and you get very quiet, you can hear a woman crying. Explosion noises. As you walk around Verruckt, you'll hear explosion noises even though you're not doing anything, and it seems to be at just the most random times. Now, I couldn't find an exact explanation for this, but it seems like this might just be some leftover stuff from the campaign. Maybe the campaign had certain triggers to send an explosion noise when you got to a certain area, and this just could be some leftover stuff from that. But if you know more about this, I would genuinely be interested to know, so leave it down below in the comments. But to me, it just seems like something left over from campaign or multiplayer. Mannequins. Treyarch used to love to use mannequins to help really set in that creepy feeling, and Verruckt definitely loved to do that. You can find a couple mannequins all over the map in various states. One is just stabbed with multiple knives all over. And there's even another mannequin that's even more creepy that you can find hanging from a rope in the Speed Cola room. Now you see all that and you think, yeah, that's pretty creepy. But the real question is, who did that to them? 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42. This is a set of numbers that you can eerily hear being read next to the power switch in Verruckt. Now, in the zombie storyline and like in Zombies, these numbers don't mean anything. They're a simple Easter egg that references the TV show Lost. Lost was extremely popular during its day, and during its run, these numbers would appear frequently as their own little Easter egg. They had storyline implications and just would constantly keep reappearing. And these numbers in Verruckt are just simply a reference to that. Like again, I can't emphasize just how popular the show was when it was on. Quick Revive alternate poster. So this one could either be talking about the Quick Revive poster that we mentioned earlier, the one where the developer was cut out, or it could be talking about the Black Ops 1 poster. So in the World at War Quick Revive poster, you can see that the Quick Revive icon isn't the one that we all know and love. It was an earlier version and probably just a placeholder until they got the one they wanted. But in the Black Ops 1 version of Verruckt, this poster would be changed and fixed to have the actual Quick Revive logo on it. Verruckt. This is an old school misspelling of Verruckt. As we all know, it's spelled V-E-R-R-U-C-K-T. But in this one instance, it was spelled Verruckt, completely forgetting the C. And this could be found on the Xbox 360. If you had a friend that was playing the Black Ops 1 version of Verruckt, and you went and checked out their menu, you would see it misspelled as Verruckt instead of how it should be. Music radio. So you remember how in Nocturne Toten and the Help Room, there was a radio that you could interact with and it would just play various tunes? Well, that eventually did make its way to Verruckt in Black Ops 1. On the American side, if you come up to this barrier right here and you look through the window, you'll see a radio. And if you end up shooting it, it'll activate very similar to the Nocturne Toten one. Marines can't taste perks. This is an interesting little theory that would explain why the Marines in Verruckt never say anything when you drink a perk. That is quite the opposite from almost every other character in Zombies that definitely has something to say, especially about the taste.
This flavor brings a smile to my face.
But this might start falling apart once you look at the fact that Dempsey was supposed to be or rewritten to be in Verruckt, and he always has something to say about taste.
Fucking hate fish!
Broken zombie spawn. I think this is referring to the fact that you can really break up the zombie spawns as long as you keep certain doors closed and certain ones open. If you have the Speed Cola room open, but you don't have the door to the Thompson open, they won't spawn in the barrier in that room. So Verruckt spawns can be a little bit broken. Marines sent to rescue Peter McCain. We briefly talked about this earlier, but the whole reason the entire situation at Verruckt is happening is because the 4 Marines were initially sent to rescue Peter McCain, who was an OSS spy that was sent in to infiltrate Group 935. He started his work at Derice and then would eventually be transferred to the Asylum. Suspecting that things at the Asylum were starting to go foobar, the OSS decided to pull Peter out, and that's when they sent in the 4 Marines, Smokey, John Banana, Paxton, and Tank Dempsey. But when they got there, Peter wasn't there. He managed to escape, but not before losing his left arm, which you can find on the power switch. Only 3 days after his escape, that's when the 4 Marines would actually arrive to find the facility overrun with zombies. Mounted MG42. So we briefly talked about the unusable MG42 under the fountain. Well, this would make another appearance. Well, a couple appearances. In the Black Ops 3 version of Nocturne Toten, you can find a newer and improved MG42. And hell, it even made a reappearance in the Verruckt section in Revelations. Well, it's a little different. The MG42 isn't underneath the fountain, instead it's on top. Verruckt patience screams and cries. I know the next one was supposed to be the bar was deployable, but we already talked about that, and I don't want to keep talking about the BAR like 1,000 times. I love the gun as much as the next guy, but we don't need to keep talking about it. But as you walk around the Verruckt facility, as long as you don't have zombies chasing you or a teammate shooting a gun right into your ear, you can hear the terrifying screams and cries of what appear to be some ghost or something. And just looking at Verruckt, those screams and cries definitely fit this location, and really help add to that creepy and terrifying atmosphere that they were trying to give you. We're not playing a zombies map full of bright colors and happy endings. Some serious shit went down here. This was definitely not a place you would ever want to be at. Hellhounds gutted from Verruckt. Hellhounds were originally created to be in Verruckt. They were designed to help break up that monotony of just doing round after round after round of regular zombies. But it seems like they weren't exactly ready for Verruckt. That and the fact that it probably wasn't the greatest idea to have a fast moving enemy with also super sprinters in a tight, cramped map. So they would eventually get pushed back and eventually make their debut in Shinonuma. scorpion. Treyarch just loves to tease guns that aren't in zombie maps for some reason. It's just their thing. In the lead up to the Black Ops 1 Resurrection DLC, a preview image for Verruckt showed the guy holding a scorpion, which, as we all know, is not even in zombies. Why they kept doing this to us, I'll never know, but I secretly think they get off on it. Fountain filled with blood. In the Black Ops 3 remaster of Verruckt, the fountain has changed a little bit, not only in design, but also in its contents. This fountain is filled with blood, and if you have a boom boom or anything like that, and you shoot the fountain, it will start vomiting up blood. Now, if you're wondering what they did with the original fountain, well, they just removed it off-site. You can actually find the original World at War Verruckt fountain just right here outside the map. So all you have to do if you're playing a legit game is just figure out a way to get outside the map so you can go see some good old nostalgia. Verruckt corkboard. On the American side of Verruckt, you can find this corkboard. Now, there's really nothing too important on it, but if we do a little translation and a little digging, we can kind of figure out what all this stuff is. The German here translates roughly to, "Hang in there, men, we'll finish them off," or something along those lines. I was gonna try to read that in German, but I legit spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out how to do it, until eventually I just rage quit and gave up. The other German in the bottom right means yes, yes, sure, or yes, yes, of course, or something like that. I kept getting a bunch of different results. And the map that you can see right here is a map of Verona, Italy. What that has to do with Verruckt, I'll never know. Like I said a million times, the storyline had some foundations, but wasn't quite made yet, so this really was probably just a placeholder because they wanted something on the wall. Editing me here, as I was going back through this, I went and loaded up campaign, and I saw that the corkboard was also in the same spot in campaign, so it looks like they just kept it. It literally has nothing to do with zombies whatsoever. Zombie Smokey kills John Banana. This is unfortunately how our lovable rhyming John Banana goes out. And I guess lucky for us, but unlucky for him, he actually recorded his final moments. In Revelations, you can find this radio where he tells us how it all ends.
Field report, a quiet retort, the mission has all gone south. It's Johnny here, Smokey is near, most likely with meat in his mouth. We've been here for ages, I ran out of pages, but now have a mic to record. The mission has failed, McCain must have bailed, and now we must fight off a horde. We came to Verruckt with low ammo and luck, and now Smokey's lost his head. We went down the halls, they bit Smokey's balls, and now he walks with the dead. They call me Banana, I worked at a cabana, I rhyme to keep myself sane. Though Smokey is dead, I'm holding his head, which right now is eating my brain.
Who was butchered in the kitchen? This is a rather interesting question. If you go to the kitchen in Verruckt, you'll see a lot of things. Blood, a cleaver, and some rather suspicious meat on the table. And this would give rise to a pretty good question. Who the hell was murdered in here? Now obviously the answer is that they just did this for aesthetics, but that's not going to stop me from speculating. And my personal headcanon says that this is where they decapitated Smokey. As we know from John Banana himself, Smokey lost his head after he was quote-unquote bit in his balls, and he soon became a zombie. And the fact that his head wasn't destroyed and that Smokey was still holding it would be a pretty good explanation to the cleaver, the meat, and all of the blood in the kitchen. Once Smokey got bit and was turning, they cut off his head to end his life, or to stop him from being a zombie, or any other excuse. So next time you're in the kitchen in Verruckt, make sure to pour one out for Smokey and our boy John Banana. Now in the Black Ops 3 version of Verruckt, it does take a little bit of a turn because there's an entire just full body out on display. So there was definitely someone murdered in the Black Ops 3 version. And it's not like it was just a random soldier or something. They look like they have stuff that they bought at like Under Armour. So that would beg the question, who pissed them off so much that they picked them up on like a Sunday shopping spree, took them back to Verruckt, and killed them? baby cries. Very similar to the woman crying that we talked about earlier in the morgue, you can occasionally hear a baby crying as well. And if these are the ghostly whispers of the undead, that paints a rather grim picture that a baby died and a mother was weeping over her dead child. And knowing that they were experimenting on people and zombies here, you can only imagine how gruesome some of those deaths probably were. Why are Marines in Berlin after the war? This is a pretty solid question. Verruckt takes place on September 6th, 1945 in Berlin. But here's the thing. Germany surrendered on May 8th, 1945, so the war's already over. And by July, Berlin would be divided into Allied occupation zones. Now, Americans were in Berlin, but they were primarily occupied by the Army, not Marine recon units. Not saying that absolutely no Marines were in Berlin during this time, but it's just like, not a lot. So that begs the question, why were Marines in Berlin after the war? Well, the true answer is probably that they just reused the characters from Nocturne and Toten, since the story, again, hasn't really been made yet. So they were just like, fuck it, just have them come here now. But the storyline answer is that these aren't just ordinary Marines. They work for the OSS, and considering Peter McCain was a part of the OSS, it would probably be a lot better to send your own guys in rather than somebody else. Dr. Monty Radio. In the Black Ops 3 version of Verruckt, you can find a radio from Dr. Monty, where he goes on to just basically describe Verruckt. Nothing is really said in the radio, but it's kind of used as like a general explanation for Verruckt. Like, oh, it was just Dr. Monty, which I think is stupid and terrible writing, but here's the radio.
Electroshock therapy, chemically engineered beverages, hordes of undead Nazis. Find the power to unite and send them back to their graves. Can you believe that's how I actually described it back then? It was an asylum. It was also a horrible, terrible, grim, depressing place. I'd give you a full explanation of everything that happened there, but it would only be horrible, terrible, grim, depressing. Oh, fuck. You weren't there either. But then you were.
Dancing music. This, I believe, is talking about the music that you can hear over the PA system once you turn on power. As soon as you get power on, you're going to hear this little jingle. And this is an actual song. It's called Valse by Stefan Diaz. And it's a part of the Contemporary Styles 1 Commercials Non-Stop album, which is just an album of songs that are used for commercials. And this released all the way back in 1990. Verruckt in real life. So we all know that Verruckt comes from the campaign and multiplayer, but when you load it up, it says the Wittmau Sanatorium, which is the place that Verruckt is loosely based off of in history. The Wittmau Sanatorium opened up in the 1880s, and eventually during World War II would go on to be used by the Nazis, where they would confine, forcibly sterilize, and euthanize thousands of people who they deemed inferior. So it seems like Treyarch did their research, found a evil Nazi sanatorium, and made that the location for Verruckt. Now the actual Verruckt building wasn't based off this sanatorium, and that's pretty obvious because like I said earlier, it's based off a campaign and multiplayer, but it still is kind of eerie seeing the actual Verruckt in real life. Brains. This was a cut part of Zombies that would have allowed you, the player, to actually play as a zombie. It was first thought of for Nocturne and Toten, but it never actually got put into Zombies. The reason for that is because there were a lot of technical problems, and by the time Verruckt came around, they were already steamrolling with a home run in the Nazi zombie game mode, so they just really never went back and picked it up. But the reason it's on this Verruckt iceberg is because in the Verruckt trailer, for a brief second, you can actually see what this would have looked like. Raygun and Winter's Howl blood splatters. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what this is talking about. I was searching for at least a good hour and a half. I really couldn't find anything concrete as to what this is talking about. I saw it was possibly something along the lines of the Black Ops 1 engine and how it registers the Raygun and Winter's Howl. But I went in the game and I tried to test everything and it all seemed normal to me. I think I shot almost everything in the map and almost every single zombie in every single spot, and I didn't notice anything different from any other map or anything too different from any other gun. So I'm not quite sure what this one is talking about in reference to Verruckt. So if you guys do know, please let me know down below in the comments. I even had to ask AI, I was like, hey, scour the internet. What does this mean? And I really couldn't get a definite answer. But it seems like it's either one, definitely something with the Black Ops 1 engine and how it registers the Winter's Howl and Raygun, or it could be talking about like certain blood splatters and how people say it might look like the Raygun or Winter's Howl. I'm not sure. Editing me here, we do have an answer to this. There is a Reddit post where people talk about this bloodstain pattern, the infamous Grim Reaper one. And with this pattern, a lot of people seem to think that the Grim Reaper was holding a Raygun, or even the Winter's Howl. Now, it's pretty obvious to me that's like supposed to be the Grim Reaper holding a scythe, but you know, pareidolia. Verruckt sketches. I think this is talking about some of the random doodles that you can see around the map, and some of them include a zombie eating a human arm, a hanging man, a man yelling Schnell with the words "kill this dumb, kill that not so dumb," a teddy bear that's been crossed out, a saw, a foot stepping on something with "ha ha," the words "help," "what's now, I'm not talking to you," and some random mathematical symbols. You can find all sorts of just random things around Verruckt. Kitchen's wall writing and symbols. If we head to the kitchen in Verruckt, we can see some more wall writing just all in blood. Some of the more interesting ones is a coded message that says "Living Dead." You also have one that says OHM 935. You can also make out the words "Teddy is the biggest liar." Also the sentence "Nerve impulses generated by the motor neuron activate the muscle to which the stretch receptor is attached." You also have another one, "If within the warning world, showered full of sullen tide. From the pains torn over fish, legs be the weary cubside sun. If some blank time, question mark." You can also see the date November 3rd, 1942, which had a couple significant things happen that day. Erwin Rommel received an order from Adolf Hitler to stand and die. To Field Marshal Rommel: "In the situation in which you find yourself, there can be no other thought but to stand fast and throw every gun and every man into the battle. The utmost efforts are being made to help you. Your enemy, despite his superiority, must also be at the end of his strength. It would not be the first time in history that a strong will has triumphed over the bigger battalions. As to your troops, you can show them no other road than to victory or death." Another explanation that I've seen for this November 3rd in 1942 is a rather interesting one. It could be talking about Karl Sternheim, who was a German playwright that ended up dying on November 3rd, 1942. And one of his plays that was published and performed in 1911 was called Der Ries. So this could have been trying to give hints at future maps, or it could have just been trying to reference certain days in World War II's history. We can also find a set of numbers, 19382406. If we take those as dates, on June 24th, 1938, a meteorite would fall over Chicora. And this meteorite was a 450-ton biggin and exploded around 12 miles above the Earth's surface. And only 2 fragments of the meteorite were found following the initial investigation. And a couple years later, some even more fragments would be found. Now, do you want to know what makes this all actually really interesting? It's all a giant reference to George Romero and Night of the Living Dead. We do know that Call of Duty Zombies took some inspiration from it. I mean, hell, the first map, Nocturne Toten, Night of the Undead, Night of the Living Dead, yep, they were definitely fans of the OG. And we know in the zombie storyline, 115 reanimates dead cells. But here's the kicker. Night of the Living Dead takes place in Pennsylvania. Do you know what else is in Pennsylvania? Yeah, Chicora, the whole meteorite thing. And in Night of the Living Dead, the zombies, were actually caused by radiation from a meteor. Well, technically it was the radiation from a space probe, but close enough. Are you connecting the dots? Do you see where I'm going with this? Almost all of God's Zombies is just one giant reference to Night of the Living Dead and George Romero. Now, the last part, 9:21, is actually a Bible verse. It is Jeremiah 9:21. Death has climbed in through our windows and has entered our fortresses. It has removed the children from the streets and the young men from the public squares. Which seems to be pretty fitting for zombies. A floating sign with a zombie on it. If you can no-clip outside of the map and you come to this area, you can find exactly what this entry is describing. A random floating sign with a zombie on it. It's a shame this was never actually placed anywhere on the map. Open Wide Achievement. In everybody's favorite iOS version of Zombies, if you are playing on Verruckt, you can get this achievement. And all you have to do is activate the dentist chair. Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce this one. This random string of what we Americans would see as gibberish is actually German, and once translated to English, it says, unattended children will be immediately sold to the circus. Ropin. This is the username for Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer in the Black Ops 1 Dreamland server. And in this account, we can find a bunch of interesting things, and some of them do relate to Verruckt. For example, this is where we found all of those rhymes that John Banana said. In the subject John Banana one, it says, what a coincidence, I too found one of these strange limericks in the Verruckt archive, like this one. I once knew a soldier named Smokey, he slapped me on the head and awoke me. Turns out he was dead, I cut off his head. Yet, but headless, he still tried to choke me. I fear this poor man John may have lost his mind in Verruckt. And there's also another one from Bush. My friend, I found yet another of those limericks from the Verruckt archive. Here it goes. Despite the scary, anxious feeling, killing Walking Dead is appealing. My first kill felt great, felt like my first date, kicking their brains right up to the ceiling. I feel like the boy who wrote these was trying to tell us something. I look at the meter, the chosen words, but nothing comes to mind. Perhaps you will see something. Maybe it's the letters. DK, MFK. Do you think this means anything? And then there's this one. Smokey and I were trapped in a room. We accepted our impending doom. Till we noticed a monkey, which seemed kind of funky, until we threw it and it went boom. This John fellow must have been losing his mind. Monkeys that explode? Preposterous. We should discuss this over coffee. So that's where the John Banana rhymes actually came from. They came from Black Ops 1 and Oppenheimer's account. Paxton Gunner Ridge works for Broken Arrow. So you should know Paxton's story by now. He was one of the Marines sent in to rescue Peter McCain in Verruckt, when things went foobar and Smokey and John Banana were killed and Tank was captured. Well, Paxton was the only member to escape and get back alive to the United States, where he would go on to become an officer at Broken Arrow and actually delivered Peter McCain's corpse to his former handler, Cornelius Purnell. Now, if you do not know what Broken Arrow is, it was created sort of after World War II, once Richtofen signed the deal with the US and Soviet Union. Group 935 and Division 9 scientists would start going to the US and the Soviet Union, and eventually throughout all of this, Broken Arrow would be formed, with its whole goal to prevent another undead outbreak. And that's the too long didn't read version of it. I'm assuming once we get into Black Ops 1 and mainly 5, we'll probably talk more about this. 1938, 2406, 921. So we did talk about this earlier with like the kitchen wall writing and symbols and stuff, and I don't really want to rehash it. So I'm going to dive even deeper, not into those numbers, but into all this like wall writing stuff for some either kookier theories. So if we take a look at all of the Verruckt wall writing, it's all just kind of the same pattern that repeats over and over again, both in the kitchen and in the double barrel room. But one interesting thing is, there might be hints to a lot of future zombie maps in this image. So of course you have the Hanging Man, which could possibly be a reference to Shinonuma, with Peter McCain's hanging corpse. The date 1942-11-3, like we talked about earlier, could be a hint to Doris. The zombie eating the arm could actually be the other way around, and it could be from Die Rise and Stullinger eating the zombie arm. The giant saw? I don't know, maybe that might be the Origins intro cutscene when Richtofen saws off Maxus's head. This little bird right here, this could be referencing Mob of the Dead. Alcatraz Island was originally called Alcatraces, or I hope I pronounced that, I probably didn't pronounce that right, which was named after a pelican that was seen by the Spanish explorers. The ghost and the tombstone looking thing could be references to Buried. We know both of those things did appear in Buried. Buried had the witches' ghostly ghouls, and it also had a little cemetery. The foot stepping down on what appears to be a hole, could that be a reference to Origins as well with the giant robots? And if we even take a closer look, this could also be giving storyline implications. The whole teddy bear crossed out part has a giant equal sign right next to it, and then it shows what appears to be destroyed buildings. Could this be showing us that if Samantha is not in charge and Richtofen takes charge, the world gets destroyed? I don't know. Now I know I'm sounding absolutely insane right now. The storyline was definitely not written this far in advance, but these are theories that people have pointed out, and it wouldn't surprise me if Treyarch was like, hey, remember that thing on Verruckt? What if we somehow incorporated some of that into future maps? So that way it looks like it was all planned from the start. Samantha's Sorrow. This is the other musical Easter egg in the Black Ops 3 version of Verruckt. To first start this, you want to go over to the toilets where you activate the Lullaby for a Dead Man song, and you want to flush the toilets in this order. You want to flush the far right toilet 9 times, the middle one 3, and the far left one 5. You get it? 935. Ha 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 ha. And once you have done that, a doll of Samantha will spawn in front of the Wonder Fizz machine. Interact with it and go find the dolls scattered around the map. Once you found them all, come back to the Wonder Fizz machine, grab your max ammo, and enjoy the song. Verruckt Gravestone. I'm sorry guys, but I have no idea what this is talking about. I spent at least a couple hours looking into this, and I'm gonna feel really stupid if it's something super simple that I was just obviously overlooking, but I don't know what this is talking about. If this is talking about maybe the little tombstone that we talked about just earlier that was referencing Buried, or if this was something in Blackout that I just can't go and double check because, you know, Activision said no more Blackout, or if this is some like old school theory that just doesn't exist anymore. I have no idea. If you do know what this is talking about, please let me know because I'm going insane, going down weird rabbit holes that eventually just take me to nowhere. So if you do know anything about this, please put it down below in the comments. Editing me here again, so I got sick and tired of just not being able to solve this, so I gave up and I asked the Iceberg creator KO Zombie for a little bit of help. Now this Iceberg was made a couple years ago, and some of it was based off of old Call of Duty Zombies forum posts that are no longer around. But KO Zombie pushed me in the right direction, and eventually through the Wayback Machine, I was able to find the forum post that this was based off of. The forum post was made all the way back in 2016, and it reads, on the video Treyarch released last month named Nikolai Memories, or something, someone called Alex Simpkin commented something very interesting. I have found a new Easter egg on World War Zombies. If you go on the map Verruckt and you go to the gravestone with blood on it, there is a crack on one side. It is the side where the blood is. If you get a rifle with a scope and zoom in through the gap by awkwardly positioning yourself on the floor by lying down, there are actually books inside there. There is one book that is open though, and it goes like this. To any advent of a critical failure, you are instructed to take your cyanide tablet. That's included in your field operations kit. That in the event you have misplaced yours, there are several methods that will accomplish the same task. Field Operations 935. Then it said something that was faded, but if you guys can work it out, that will be very much appreciated. Ask if you wanna, share this, or make a video, and remember to give credit because I have worked hard to find this. Hope this helps with the massive hidden Easter egg in World at War. Enjoy. And then back to the forum post. I don't know if he is telling the truth, but because I don't have Verruckt, I can't check if it's true. Can someone who has the map take a look at this? Now this is obviously talking about the Group 935 field manual that is in World at War Zombies, but it's not in Verruckt. It's in Derice. And it seems like whoever made this original theory or comment was really confusing Derice and Verruckt. And I don't know where the bloody gravestone is coming from. That's just coming out of left field. But in Derice, there is a Group 935 field manual that you can see through like a broken AC vent that you can actually read, but there is nothing like this on Verruckt. So it seems like this was an old troll post or just someone that didn't know any better. But at least now I finally know what this is talking about. Verruckt was originally a Group 935 experimental base. So this is talking about the storyline Verruckt, not the actual map, if that makes any sense. So when he first played Verruckt in World War, it looked like it was a insane asylum run by Nazis. But if we look at the storyline as it is right now, it is a little bit different. And it really all started on July 13th, 1940, when Maxis wrote a letter to the Reichstag High Command requesting more money. And in response, the Nazis would go on to create more facilities for Group 935, such as the Kino one and the Asylum. So the Asylum would be created by the Nazis, but it would be a base and operations run solely by Group 935. Or at least that's how it was later rewritten in the story. I think at the beginning it was the Nazis doing bad things. So that's going to be the end of the video. If you liked it, make sure to check out these and be ready for the next one. Hope you guys have a great day. Leave.